podcast platforms, however you listen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Corporate Jet Investor Town Hall. Wherever you are in the world, we're delighted to welcome you. And today we're going to have a really upbeat session looking at new buyers and opportunities with new buyers. We've got five experts and me who are going to take us through exactly what's going on in the market. Really excited about this one. So let's get started. First up, we have delighted to have Renee Banglesdorf, co-founder and CEO of aircraft broker Charlie Bravo Aviation. Renee, how are you?
I'm doing well, Al, but I feel like I already need to correct you. You are definitely an expert in this field, so we count you always. And witty, as always, I'm looking forward to our time together. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thanks for coming. No one's here to listen to me, though. What are you seeing at the moment?
I actually am seeing, I know we discussed this a little bit on the town hall last week, but I am seeing a lot of new entrants into the market. I have people that I've been talking to for years who are just friends or acquaintances who are ready to buy an aircraft. And it's kind of an interesting environment for that because they're looking at the horrible schedules for commercial aviation here in the States, which I understand are worse in other areas of the world. Realizing that they can buy a plane here in the States still. We have bonus depreciation. So the companies that have had kind of a windfall by providing services during COVID are looking for places to put their money because next year is certainly even more unknown than this year from a tax perspective.
At the moment, is it all entrepreneurs and individuals?
That's what I'm seeing, Al, but that's who I normally work with anyway. So, I know a couple of other people can talk a little bit more about the corporate side of it, but that's the client profile that I normally work with. So, yes.
What sort of aircraft are you seeing most in?
Oh my goodness, it's everything. We had a client who wanted to buy a mid-sized jet as his first jet to sign up to work with us last week. And then he flew on the Hawker 800 XP charter and decided to move up to a Challenger 604. So we're seeing people coming in, entering the market with larger aircraft, which I've never seen before. Normally we see people come in, at a light jet or even a mid-sized jet, but very seldom seeing the high end of the market. And even when we talk about the different operating costs, they don't flinch. They've been able to afford it for a long time. It's never been a priority. And all of a sudden it's a priority. So, Carrie talked last week about people being educated about the operating costs, but when you do maintenance projections and you talk about the things that could come up and you really give them a good idea of the costs and they don't flinch, I think that's really good for us as aircraft brokers.
Why do you think they were holding back?
We had one guy in the Middle East who's just a kind and humble man who's always flown economy. So he bought 2 large jets from us last year, but he could certainly have afforded it, but he just didn't see the need for it. And then when he felt like his family's health was in peril, decided to spend the money. It's just not something that some people think that they need. Sometimes it seems too flashy for them. And they just want to have a regular, normal existence and look relatable to other people. But then when safety begins to be threatened, the conversation changes.
So the US is now vaccinating really fast. Do you see people seeing the world getting back to normal this summer?
I do. One thing that happened yesterday, which people outside of the U.S. may not know, is that Texas and Mississippi governors lifted the mask mandates in their states. So while there are still some county mask mandates in place, the statewide mask mandates have been lifted. So to me, that signals, yes, we're getting back to normal.
And does everything feel, the corporates and the entrepreneurs, are they back traveling already?
I'm seeing that. I mean, it's hard to judge because I think we're still only about 40% of the number of commercial flights that we had a year ago. And certainly the international flights are still down even further than that. But the flights are feeling full. The airports are feeling congested again. I'm seeing more cars in the parking lots at the airports, and generally that's a business traveler parking in the parking garage. So I think so.
It sounds exciting. We're allowed to meet one person in our garden next Friday. So we're a long way from you guys.
I'm so glad you have Louisa.
I'm not sure she's so glad she's got me. Last week we also heard about some people looking to sell aircraft. What are some first-time buyers, other opportunistic sellers? Are you getting any calls from those sorts of people?
Everyone that we're working with that's not a first-time buyer is upgrading. So even if they're selling, it's creating another buyer. I'm not really seeing a lot of people get out, except in the instance of they're elderly, they've retired, they're really not flying anymore, or in one case on an aircraft we're working on, the person has passed away, not from COVID, fortunately, in this situation, just from old age. So there is a little bit of that normal attrition that we see, but most people are not getting out of private aviation. They're changing their fleet.
You're a very creative marketing person. How are you trying to find new buyers?
You're asking me all my secrets, Al. We actually have been doing a lot of digital marketing lately, creating high value content. We created an aircraft finder tool so people can go on and enter in some of their parameters, their budget, how many people they take, how far they fly, how many trips they take a year. And it pops out the kinds of jets at which they should be looking within those parameters. And then we have an ebook that explains some of the steps and some of the considerations that you need to take when you're thinking about buying an aircraft. So we have those two tools that we promote that generate leads for us, and they're working. I mean, we're getting leads from those. So it's a lot of fun to watch sales funnels on the internet come together, because people are sitting at home searching the internet for things. Our buyers are more educated than ever before because they've been searching the internet for like 47 straight days about the kinds of models that are available out there. I don't know if anyone else is seeing that as well, but people are really coming to the table with a lot more information than they ever have before.
Yeah, I am. And I've seen, we get calls from people asking us. And I've had one very bright guy in America who, he's narrowed it down to 2 aircraft types, is desperate to speak to, actual maintenance technicians who've worked on the different aircraft. And that level of research it's new, isn't it? We didn't used to see this.
Very new. Our web traffic is up significantly, and people are spending a lot more time on our website when we look at Google Analytics than they were before.
Is there any other ways you think the industry should be using to reach new buyers?
I think I'll defer to a couple of the other guys on the call on that, Al, because I think they're coming up with some creative ownership concepts that make a lot of sense to new entrants into the market. I love what Mark's doing. I'm fascinated by what Glenn's doing. And I'm anxious to hear what those two have to say about new entrants to the market, because they're packaging aircraft ownership in a different way that I think is very much needed in the market, especially with new entrants, because people sometimes aren't ready for the whole enchilada.
I think it's great that you've got a whole aircraft salesperson saying that. Okay, we've got one question for you from Lucas Wilcox. Any thoughts on the Learjet 75 Liberty announcement? Seems like most of the 3,000 Learjets built are still airworthy, but built to airliner Part 25, unlike new entrants like PC-24 or Phenom 300.
Yeah, I don't think anyone on this call was surprised by the Learjet announcement. I think some of us are surprised that it took them so long to end production of an aircraft that's been anemic in interest for a long time. I think that from an operations perspective, the Learjet has lagged behind the operational efficiencies of Cessnas and Phenoms for a really long time. Lears are fantastic aircraft, but the marketing of and the product development life cycle of the Learjet line has been anemic for a long time.
I was a bit surprised, but only because I'd listened to Bombardier telling us how they were backing it forever, and I'm obviously more gullible.
Well, they haven't been selling. People aren't interested in that aircraft. We don't get inquiries about it. So
Renee, what's your final takeaway? I'm trying to remember. We're in March 2021. I'm struggling there. What's your final takeaway for the market?
I think that we still have a good year in front of us. After our call last week, I reached out to a friend of mine who's a legislative aide on the Ways and Means Committee in U.S. Congress, and I asked him about bonus depreciation. And his indication from talking with other legislative aides who have congressmen on both sides of the aisle in D.C. in that committee is that they don't expect for bonus depreciation to go away this year. There may be some other tax things that come up this year that are negative for our industry, but he doesn't think that bonus depreciation is going to go away. His congressman has actually proposed keeping this flavor of bonus depreciation with the new and used equipment to be permanent in the tax code. So, that would be great for us, for people in the US who need that kind of instrument to buy equipment or invest in equipment. I think that could be really positive, but we may get hit with higher corporate taxes or capital gains taxes this year. But he says, from what he's hearing, bonus depreciation isn't something that the Biden administration or the Democratic Congress is going to go after heavily.
That's great, and thanks for researching that. For anyone looking to sell to UK buyers, aircraft, I think, will be included in the new super deduction that was announced a few hours ago. So now could be a great time for UK corporates to buy them.
Thanks, Al. I'll apologize to everyone for jumping off early. I have another commitment at 9:30 my time, but I'll stay on for a little bit. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Renee. Great to see you. Now we're talking about exciting new companies and new entrants. We're absolutely delighted to have Glenn Gonzalez, founder and CEO, not Chief Information Officer, of JetIt. Glenn, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Al, thank you so much for your time. I'm honored to share this panel with Mark and Peter and David and of course Renee just most recently, and obviously with you as well, Al. So thank you.
No, we're really excited to have you here. Take us back. You were a Honda Jet sales guy with your colleague, and why did you launch?
Yeah, what we saw in the market was a phenomenal airplane. Both my co-founder and I worked at Gulfstream and were very well versed in all things that the market is truly after: comfort, quality, reliability, spaciousness, quiet, all of the things that you find on any Gulfstream product or any of the flagship aircraft. And we saw those same things in the Honda Jet as well. It's incredibly spacious inside. Yes, we don't have as many seats as your Lear 75s or your Challenger 300s, but the legroom is equivalent, and in some cases even better. In addition to that, it's fast for its size. It's incredibly efficient and extremely quiet. So with the knowledge of the aircraft and what the market was interested in for the aircraft and a number of demonstration flights time and again, what we recognized was there was a gap in the market that was completely and totally underserved. As Renee mentioned, there are individuals who can afford more airplane or a larger service, but do they have interest in, can they justify it? Are they ready to make the leap into a whole airplane? And more times than not, they were not. And that's where the gap in the market presented itself. And that's where JetIt was formed.
And how does your model work?
So individuals are buying a piece of the airplane, very similar to a NetJets in that sense, or FlexJet. Their ownership in part of that aircraft, but when they're not utilizing the airplane, we put the airplane into the charter market. So those individuals their cost of ownership, and to an extent, is offset by that. We assume the risk for that opportunity, and it's worked out so well so far.
That's an amazing. So that's the big difference between a traditional fractional is that I get some contribution towards the costs from charter. And are you selling your charter direct or through brokers like David?
We own our 135, so it is direct through us. Obviously, if someone comes to us directly, but we also put our airplanes into the traditional market. So we have brokers who come to us, and we support them, and in turn, we return the favor.
And how was 2020 for you? You're a young company, pandemic hits.
Yeah.
How was it?
It actually was incredibly exciting. As an aviator, we had a number of pilots on staff, and the first thing that came to mind as a person who was in that seat, who's been furloughed from a flight department, was, how do we make sure that we don't let anyone go and we retain everyone through this challenge? I guess that's kind of the military fighter pilot in me. We've got to fight our way through this. How are we going to do it? Well, that was a very short-lived experience. We actually grew our workforce from 22 to now 68 last year. We increased our EBITDA 12 and a half times. And we've expanded now into Canada. My co-founder runs Jet Club, which is our international arm. So Vishal is excited to export our first airplane out of the US into the EU, and we'll begin Jet Club operations there. And we're excited to continue to expand globally, as what I heard here in the US, he heard internationally in Southeast Asia and India, and as well as in the EU.
So that's a really interesting, and it's the same model for Jet Club.
It is. In the EU, it is most definitely the same model. It does have some adaptations as we continue our expansion into other parts of the world. But for the EU, it is the same model. You're buying a piece of the airplane. You're getting the opportunity to fly the airplane at a significantly reduced rate. And for those individuals who are uninterested in buying a share, they then can charter the aircraft, which subsequently offsets the cost of ownership for those owners.
So you've got an innovative, fast-growing business. You're looking to scale it internationally. Surely now's the time to sell to SPAC. There's a great deal of interest. There's a lot of activity going on financially. It's something that we've had people approaching us about. We're still a young company. We still believe that there's a lot of organic growth that we can master and continue to move forward with. So it's not something on the table for us right now. There are some other elements that we're focused on for our business that were pre-planned and strategic in our growth and expansion. And for us, it's about putting our operations in front of our brand. We believe we have those items in place. And there are still a couple of post holders that we want to finalize, but that as those things come through, we'll continue to grow our business organically. One of your thesis behind the company is the evolution of transportation. Do you want to explain more on that?
Yeah, it's all happened before in some form or fashion. History always repeats itself. And when you look at the transportation or the evolution of transportation, those people with means are constantly looking for a more efficient, autonomous means of travel. If we back up several centuries ago, if you had means, you had a horse and carriage. Why? You could afford to build the carriage or to feed the horse and keep the horse alive. If you didn't, you were walking, and that created a level of efficiency and autonomy that the person who didn't have means had. Present day, the efficiency is found through the airlines, but the autonomy is now lost. Renee mentioned that a number of the airlines are reducing their routes, which had already begun previously. So those people who have a need to travel to keep their employees gainfully employed, to continue to grow and expand their business, to meet with suppliers, they're looking for and need that autonomy and that efficiency to travel. And our days-based model allows you to have that, but to now allow it to be justifiable here in the U.S. flying for $1,600 an hour, in Canada for $2,200 Canadian. So it's the natural transition from one means of travel to the next. That requires a technology shift. We believe that to be the Honda Jet. That requires a market demand and need. The pandemic has accelerated that knowledge, and here we are to support that change.
We've got a couple of questions for you. One from Byron Severson, founder of Tally Ho app. What's the key component or components of your model drawing people to JetIt?
Yeah, I would say that the key component, and a great question from Byron, the key component to what people are interested in with us, obviously we have a very attractive airplane that is new and spacious and very high tech, but also it's the price point. It's the business model and how it all comes together to support all elements of the market, to support their needs. Being able to utilize an aircraft for the entire day as if it's my own private flight department, but not have a number of hours that I'm beholden to. I may need to take a 5-hour trip, and I now don't have to ration out that experience because it's 10% of my hours for the year. I know that I still have 24 more days or 54 more days for my travel needs.
And is the day model simpler for you to administer?
I would say so. I think the hours is a construct of our industry. Just like in the nautical space, airplanes, we keep track of the number of flight hours on the airplane, the number of flight hours on the engine, but we don't live our lives that way. We might schedule our day that way, but we live our lives by the day. And so what our owners appreciate about our service is planning their day. I know I need the airplane on the 24th, and I can work around that within what the FAA allows the JetIt crew members to do.
Okay, we've got more questions. Byron's also saying he's heard something about a COVID passport. Can you share a little about that?
Yeah, it's definitely something of great interest. We've been in conversation with a number of security firms, and we're recently on a panel with Concentric Advisors about this very thing. It's something that we're finding as we're traveling in and out of the U.S. That now current requirement for people to have a test, but prior to coming back into the U.S. I think it's just a natural evolution again of how we're going to travel to the Caribbean. We're seeing that trips are extended or they're shortened as they're traveling outside of the U.S. primarily because they want to get the most out of the experience. And having a COVID passport might allow us or a vaccination passport might allow us to get in and out of the country a little more freely. I know it's definitely in discussion a lot there in the EU. And maybe that's another way forward to help us get back to some sense of normalcy.
Terry Spreece is asking, Glenn, are you looking to expand into other airplane types?
Right now, our focus has been on the Honda Jet, and obviously we're a single aircraft supplier as it stands to date, and so that relationship as it grows will determine that. As far as expanding, we found that our mission works well, very much like Southwest Airlines started with a regional focus, with high efficiency and a high level of service. We're not handing out bottles of Jack Daniels on every single flight, but we do have that high level of touch and service with our concierge service. And keeping our focus in our lane is where we are today, and we'll allow the market to determine where we grow to if necessary.
So NetJets has just obtained purchase options for 20 Aerion supersonic jets. Would that be an interesting one for you to think about in the future?
Oh, absolutely. It would definitely be a great fit for what we do. With our expansion into now Canada and Europe, the opportunity to move across the Atlantic faster and then have Jet and Jet Club waiting for you on either side, or as we expand into India and Singapore and beyond, to get to those environments and then travel around those regions with a brand and a company that you're familiar with, that you're used to, the consistency, the clarity, and the certainty of experience. We can provide that for you. And so it'd be a great option to be able to expand our service with a supersonic aircraft. Good luck to this.
We'll take that as an order. It's interesting that you're going international so early.
That comes up a lot, and I think the answer to that is very simply, I've been running the U.S. My co-founder has quietly been building our international platform. He brings to the table the experience for all of Asia. He's been working in that environment for the last 15 years and was close to the wealth in the individuals in need of transportation, close to the aviation industry, the regulatory authorities. He built the Honda network in that part of the world. So I would think there are only probably 1 in 5 individuals with his skill set to bring to the table with so many of those elements to bear. And so he's been building, and we're excited to now start Jet Club and expand our service.
That's really exciting. Mike Francis from First Republic is asking, Glenn, is obtaining insurance at a reasonable cost with adequate coverage for your owner pilots been an issue?
It definitely. I mean, the insurance market as a whole has been tightening, but we have with our owner pilots, they can only fly with their families on board. It's definitely something they have to maintain their medical. They have to be typed in the airplane. So we're not dealing with individuals that are just fresh off of their personal pilot certificate. In most cases, they've grown into our platform. And although the insurance market has been tightening, we have great partners that understand our needs and that understand our market. And they're always flying next to one of our senior captains. So it's, again, kind of going back to owning the entire airplane, but having a seeing eye captain, if you will, or a safety pilot next to you.
Brilliant. Glenn, thank you so much. That was fascinating. Thanks so much. Okay, David, let's go to you now. David McCann needs no introduction, President, Air Partner Inc. David, you just need to unmute because, sorry, I was muting everyone during
Yeah, sorry. I had technical difficulties, of course, at the beginning of this. I don't know if that...
No one noticed. You're in.
So good. Fine. Nobody noticed me.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And how's business?
Business is booming, Al. No surprise. We... With respect to corporate jets, in particular, we've just seen an extension of the uptick from interest from new flyers that started back in really March, April last year, and it just continues to carry through. I would echo a lot of what I heard from Renee and Glenn. We're seeing a lot of new requests from qualified, informed prospects coming in through the web. Obviously, I think Renee alluded to it. People have a lot of time to spend researching many things on the web, and so we're seeing a real uptick in our lead generation through the web. Christmas was one of our busiest holiday seasons ever here in the U.S. Obviously, we didn't have the travel restrictions that the rest of our business saw in Europe and the UK. The interest is primarily from the leisure travel traveler segment. I would say that the business segment has yet to really bounce back. We're seeing some of the more traditional flyers coming back that might have flown to a lesser extent last year, but and who were on the fence, they are definitely coming back. So it is a very rosy outlook in our view for the private jet market here in the U.S. going forward. I think one of the challenges actually we're going to see, and I'm sure some of the other people on the panel are aware of it, is going to be a supply issue. I think that there was a very large spike across the board in new entrants in terms of customers. And as the business travel comes back, and I think we're going to see it as soon as this summer with the rollout of the vaccine, and as that takes hold here in the U.S., the summer is going to see very tight supply.
I've never heard you this bullish. This is amazing. And are you confident that your corporate customers, because you've got a fantastic book of corporate customers, are you confident they're going to come back and not just rely on Zoom?
Yeah, I think there might be some attrition there, Al, but I think generally people want to do face-to-face stuff, and especially the business travelers at the level that we serve. They are the types that actually need to do face-to-face meetings. We might see some attrition, but I think it's going to be more than offset by the new entrants who are primarily leisure travelers. But we've obviously had some business users who have come into private aviation as new users in the last year. I think it was also touched on that. I think the scheduled commercial airlines are in a real pickle. I think that they're the ones that are going to get hurt the most by the business travelers and the fact that such a large portion of their revenue comes from the business traveler. I think that they're going to scale back or not bring back the frequency of schedules as well as the direct nonstop routes. It's going to require use of private aviation even more so that people can actually fly more point to point and make their schedules work. So I think that while some might peel away, some new ones will come in just because the scheduled service is going to have a challenge serving them.
And so you see there's a chance that rates will go up, or charter will get more expensive this summer?
I think so. I think we're already seeing it a bit. I can't give you some actual stats, but I was having some conversations yesterday that we are starting to see prices go up. I think it's not a surprise if they do, especially as the economy opens up more. And there has been, in the U.S., for example, we more than doubled the acquisition of new customers last year versus the prior year. And I would imagine from what I've read that we are not alone in that. And so with that, I think we're going to all experience some pretty tight supply.
So now's a good time to buy a jet card.
Now is it's a good time to buy a jet card. But now is a good time to buy a jet card, yes.
That's really cheering.
Time to lock, and to that point, now is a good time to start, and we're seeing this, to start planning because it will tighten up, especially if you have holiday plans to go to Europe with hopefully Europe's going to open up. But I do think that supply is tight, and we are seeing our customers doing a lot of pre-planning now. And it's interesting. Some of them are the sort of 65 and over crowd that are about to get their second vaccine booster shot, and they're just, this is a year that's been wasted for them. There's so much that so many people want to do, and so they're already pre-planning their travels. And so we do have a lot of forward bookings into April and May, sort of the seasonal migration from the south to north.
And finally, we're seeing so much money coming into business aviation. We've got Signature, there's Wheels Up, Blade. You work for a listed company. What do you think of this? And is it fun working at a listed company?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've always felt private aviation is a good investment. It is interesting to see the money come in. There's certainly been an elevated visibility. Wheels Up's done a great job bringing that visibility, elevating the visibility, and with them announcing the SPAC merger, it's fun to watch. From a valuation standpoint, it makes us wonder why Air Partner. It may actually be beneficial to Air Partner's stock price. I mean, we are a company that's been around for a long time. We've been publicly traded for over 20 years. We're a profitable company. We're global. We have a diverse business. We're publicly listed. Our transparency is, we go through vetting every year, obviously, as a publicly listed company. And so we believe that obviously we'll be interested in seeing how Wheels Up does with their eventual entree into the public markets.
You've got a question from Richard Marney at goldenpropeller.com. Have you got any numbers over the past year of jet card users becoming aircraft owners?
No, I don't. And we do have our remarketing side of the business, which is primarily in the large group commercial sized aircraft. I don't have any numbers, and either internal or external. I'm sorry, I can't really give you any insight.
I'd have thought that there's actually, you've got quite a lot of jet owners who also have cards, so you wouldn't necessarily notice, would you?
Exactly. So a lot of it's not an either or. You're right. You're spot on that. We do a lot of supplemental lift for whole ownership users as well as fractional owners, and so a lot of people have all three. They may own an aircraft, they may supplement with fractional, and then they'll supplement that with charter for whatever reason.
Brilliant, David. Thanks so much. That was a really upbeat, cheery, and great seeing you.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you. And now delighted to go to Mark Malloy. Mark is President of Partners in Aviation. We're talking about innovative business models. Mark, do you want to explain Partners in Aviation to people who don't know it?
The elevator speech on this is it's match.com for business aircraft. We match two owners to one aircraft, and every match we do is then also matched up with a charter manager or Part 91 manager. We do both. So it's a little bit of a triangle. Each and every match is unique. There's two owners. The bottom line of that triangle is our legal structure, which is different than what partnership used to be. And then at the top of that triangle is this manager who is kind of the quarterback of this, who handles and carries out all of what's in that agreement. They don't have to make decisions. They just kind of carry out those decisions. So that's really, it's a dating service for turbine aircraft. And that's probably the simplest way to describe it.
And how many weddings did you have in 2020?
We had a very good year. I'll tell you, we did. We don't provide all our numbers, but we did CJs 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. We did mids. We did XLSs, Phenom 100s and 300s, Gulfstreams, Challengers. So we've been in all three categories: to the light, the mid, and the super mid. And 2020 was a good year. I think it was a good year really for everybody in our industry who's bringing different ways to somehow get a piece of or share of an airplane, whether through a card or through a membership program or some type of an ownership program. I think for our whole segment, 2020 was really a solid year.
And is it always two owners? Can you have more?
No, not in our model. I mean, certainly there's partnerships out there where several folks get together, and you absolutely can do that. But our legal structure and our philosophy really is that this works very well when we stay inside of our lane, which is 2 owners and 1 aircraft. And our owners also have to really fit inside of our box, which means they're probably flying more than 50 hours a year, because if they're not flying 50 hours a year, the investment in capital is probably not going to make sense at the end of the day. And if they're flying much more than 150 hours a year, they're probably going to bend more towards sole ownership in terms of their needs. But we try to be that little donut hole in the middle there, where maybe they're coming out of a jet card because they're now getting to that 75-hour a year space, and they're starting to consider some level of ownership. And that's where the math seems to work best for us, is in that 100-hour a year operator plus or minus 50 hours.
And how does the crew management work?
So as I said, every match is going to have a professional manager, and we're not in that business. We partner with managers throughout the industry. So in many cases, the match is choosing one of our strategic partner managers that we recommend based on where they are geographically, what kind of airplane they're getting into. There's often a logical partner of ours that would be. In other cases, we'll have somebody who's maybe been chartering for quite a while, and they have a great relationship with the manager that they've been using, and they want to leverage that relationship. So we'll use that manager. So the 2 owners that we bring together ultimately choose who that manager is. We guide that process, but they make the decision. But it's an integral part of the match. Actually, it's more important than who their partner is, quite honestly, because once they hit the go switch and they're off and flying, there's very little communication or relationship with the other owner. It's all with that charter manager and their crew.
Okay, I don't want to ask this, but I think I have to. Have you had any divorces yet?
We have not. We have not. We've had a recent case where it was a CJ4, and one of the partners started flying more than he suspected he would, and just wanted to see if he could just take on the whole airplane, and that was fine and comfortable for the other owner. So that owner sold his 50% interest to his co-owner, and then we were able to take that remaining guy and brought him into another partnership. So, because it's only 2, there's discussions all the time about, let's start with this airplane and we might move into a larger airplane. But anything they want to do that makes sense mutually, they can do, and we can usually assist with that.
And have you been seeing new entrants, or have you been seeing people who've owned and decided they're not using their aircraft the whole time, or people who've been chartering heavily with David or other brokers?
I don't think we're so much the guys that are coming into the industry absolutely for the first time. We're kind of that second level. So, most of our customers have either owned airplanes in the past or currently own an airplane, and they've decided they could, it would make sense for them to bring on a co-owner, or they're coming out of one of the other programs because they're starting to fly more. So if the guys that are really putting their toe in the water for the first time, I think they're going to more often than not be drawn to the jet card or one of the membership programs. And then at some point, they might find that some level of ownership makes sense to them. And we're getting that customer who's decided they want to take it to maybe just a little bit bigger level than where they are today, but they're not ready to bite off 100% of ownership.
Great. We've got a question from Terry Spreece. Mark, do you think your business model would work in Europe and internationally?
No question. It would. No question. There's no problem with that. It's just we have to scale up there, and we hope to do that at some point. Right now, we're pedaling as fast as we can here, and it's keeping us plenty busy. But we're already starting conversations there because it does make sense. The matches we do are geographic, so you do have to have some scale, and that takes a little while. But really, it's pretty. The model is pretty transferable, not only geographically to Europe and other areas, but up and down the categories of aircraft. We've done SF-50 Vision jets, and we've done Challenger 605s, and so it really works in any of those segments, all the way up and down the scale. And I think it would make total sense to and we'd like to do that as time and allows to expand it.
Are you mainly doing pre-owned aircraft or new?
Both, but right now I'd say it's 90+% pre-owned. We've done new airplanes, and when we really started this, I came out of the OEM world, and I wanted to be an asset really to OEMs to kind of grow their pie where they're trying to get new aircraft out there, and at that high price point to pay 50 cents on the dollar for the same airplane would make life a little easier. So we've done new aircraft for OEMs, but our typical client is looking for that kind of flat spot, if you will, where airplanes have had that they're leveling off in their depreciation, but they're still new enough to have the avionics and the maintenance cycles that they want. So I would say, while we've done new airplanes and we've done airplanes as old as model year 2000, our typical airplane is a 10 to 15-year-old airplane. That's just where the customers want to be in terms of cost and in terms of flattening out of the depreciation scale.
Great. And we've got a question from Michael Farley at Outlier Jets. What's the geographic distance between owners, the maximum geographic distance between
the bigger the airplane, the less important that it seems to be. But our typical matches, we have some matches where they fly out of the same airport, and that's great, but that's rare. But we try to keep it within a 30-minute positioning. When we do that, and again, because we're talking about light users, these are our clients fly 3 to 5 days a month. They're flying, that's their usage habits. They're not high time flyers. So the positioning of that 30-minute hop happens, twice a month. And that's not that, while we have to account for that, and we do, that doesn't move the needle really in the math on this. And that's a shared expense. So neither owner really cares where the airplane sleeps. What they care about is they drive 15 minutes to their airport, walk through their FBO, get on their airplane with their crew at the most reasonable cost. And when we keep it inside that 30-minute window, that works. The math works very well.
Brilliant, Mark. That's fantastic. It's amazing. I remember talking to you before you launched. It's amazing how well it's going. So thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks very much.
And now, last but no means least, delighted to have Peder from Nicholas Air, Peder van Harten, Vice President, Sales and Marketing. And for those of you who haven't met him before, he's quite outspoken sometimes. So I'm looking forward to this.
At times. Thank you, Al, for the introduction. No, it's always good to catch up with you. Obviously, we spoke in the fall at one of your summits before, and I think the industry has taken on a little bit different shape even since then. And I think that was October, November that we spoke last. So a lot of things here in the last 4 months, a lot of great things here at Nicholas Air, but seems from everybody else on the panel that the industry is in a healthy place, and frankly, I think a healthier place now than it was even 12 months ago.
Yeah, it's amazing. You guys had an amazing year last year. Do you want to take us through Nicholas Air for people who aren't familiar?
We did, and it's no secret here. We've kind of released some numbers here about our growth over the past, at least from 19 to 20, up 62% in revenue, and a lot of that has been driven by the fact that we feel that we have the most refined set of flyers in the industry. Folks that have been in the industry, flown different providers before, but by way of reputation, by way of referral, they've gotten on a Nicholas Air aircraft, decided that this was the program for them, and decided to stay. The reality is that we have a much different corporate culture here than you're going to find elsewhere in the industry. We're not venture capital owned. We're not private equity backed. The founder and CEO of this business, who I guess 24 years now that we've been doing this, the founder and CEO of this business is in this office every single day, sitting right now about 60 feet away from me, actually working in the business. He engages with our customers every day, engages with our employees, engages with our flight line constantly, and that in turn changes the customer service experience and reputation, and has drawn a lot of people to Nicholas Air. That's not the same elsewhere in the business. I've been in businesses before where, frankly, the CEO doesn't say hello to anybody in the morning when they pass them in the hallway, and it changes the corporate culture. But when you come here, Nicholas Air, our entire leadership team, has moved to our headquarters to be in the office every single day. And when you have that kind of leadership at the top, it flows through the entire organization and sets the standard for what we want our customers to see every day as well.
And how does your model work?
We are a jet card based model primarily. We have a couple other program options for folks, but it allows you to be jet specific on the aircraft that you want to fly. So ranging from the PC-12, Phenom 100, CJ3, Phenom 300, Latitude, and Challenger 300. A flyer can come to us, know specifically what aircraft they want to fly, and rest assured that the next morning that airplane is going to show up exactly as they expected. Obviously, it's a little bit different. It's non-fractional. You don't have to worry about buying the equity share of the airplane and the heavy monthly management fees. And in the jet card industry, it's fairly unique in that most of the jet card industry operates under an open fleet or a broker model.
Which means you go out and buy aircraft yourselves.
We do. We, owned and operated by Nicholas Air. I know that David had mentioned a little bit of some of the supply side issues that some of the market is going to see coming up, particularly as the parts, we mentioned earlier with Renee about the Learjet, the side that's not being spoken a lot about right now with Learjet ceasing is that parts for those aircraft are going to become hard to come by as well. Which means that you're going to see a little bit faster phase out of some of those airplanes over the next 4 or 5 years. So while I don't see the supply side economics changing a whole lot, at least in the next 3 to 6 months, the next 12 to 24 months will change for those who do have to go out to the market and find aircraft. But for Nicholas Air, we're going to continue to buy airplanes. We did last year. We bought aircraft direct from Embraer. We've had each of the OEMs, at least for the fleets that we fly, have been into our office, coming down to our headquarters to pitch us on buying aircraft from them directly and buying large aircraft orders at the same time, which I think is really a good testament to where we are with our business and the amount of respect that we're getting from the OEMs in that regard. Even now, as we sit here, I'll have more Phenom 300s and Citation Latitude on my ramp in the next 45 days as we've continued to grow even beyond the whole bump of Q4 2020.
What's your thoughts on the money coming to the industry?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and I knew you were looking for a kind of juicy reply, but it's interesting, having done this now 15, 16 years of my life, it's interesting to see private aviation at a point where it doesn't feel as taboo as it once was. At least during my career, you've had several ups and downs in the market where, we all remember everyone getting vilified when they flew to Congress to get TARP money back in 2009. Privately, it took maybe 2 or 3 years for that to bounce back. Then the market came back a little bit, went back down. Now it's coming back a little bit more, but for all different reasons. It was not, back 2008, 9, 10, it was all financial. Now the market is coming back because people want to control the uncontrollables that are out there. And I think that's really what we've leaned on from having an owned and operated fleet where we can control everything about it. That's what's provided the bump for us. I mean, truth be told, we're talking a lot about new flyers in this panel, but our group, we don't have a lot of folks that are new to private aviation. We have folks that have been with different solutions over time. And as I said, the most refined set of private flyers, they come to us knowing specifically what they want. David, Renee, Glenn had mentioned the lead time that it took for somebody to make a purchase, but they came to the table ready to sign on the heels of a lot of education. To your question about money, I think I'm more intrigued, not so much how the money is coming into the industry. I think anybody that's on the investing side can say private aviation is enjoying a really nice moment right now. I'm a little bit more interested to see how all that capital is going to get deployed. You mentioned Wheels Up earlier. Is it going to be investments in new aircraft to support the supposed jump in their revenue and their number of members? Or is it purely going to go back to previous mentions where it's all about investing in the technology and the information and the customer database and the parties and the events and all the other things? For Nicholas Air, at our core is providing private aviation services. We have experiences that augment that for our membership base, but our focus here, 99.9% of it is on the aircraft, the flight experience itself, and not really just running out to grab technology plays and information plays at a global level.
Did you enjoy reading the Wheels Up pitch book?
I did, actually. It provides a really nice contrast to how we run our business here. When you look at the numbers themselves and you try to pair that against what's been publicly said in a lot of forums over the past, 8 years now, and you look back and say, well, revenue this year was supposed to be X and EBITDA was supposed to be X and we're going to be profitable. Things like that. I think a lot of that came to light in a lot of discussions I've had in the industry with prospects as well and current customers that have alluded to that. It's eye-opening, not terribly surprising, but it's eye-opening to be able to look at that and see, where a lot of those resources were deployed. And again, you have to think about what the path forward is going to be and whether an IPO or a SPAC actually changes that. The big thing for me, I think, is the amount of information that came out in that. And then, again, looking at some of the press releases that you've seen from really a lot of brands, and what they assess their value of the business is. David, you had mentioned, about Air Partner and what a $2 billion valuation for Wheels Up does for your business. And I look at the same for mine. We run a very healthy, responsible, profitable business here. But I also see the press clippings from one CEO maybe about a month ago that went on a couple different forums and said, well, we just finished a great 2020 and we got our numbers in and it was a $400 million a year. And then, 2 weeks later, I see a different publication and it's the same CEO that comes out and says, well, we just got our numbers back and it's a $450 million a year. So you have to be a little bit wary of the information that's out there. Obviously, the pitch deck showed a little bit as far as one competitor is concerned, but look, I go to work every day very happy and very comfortable to know what our business is doing, our place in the market, and to see that our membership and the prospect market has responded to what we do differently than everybody else.
You've got a great question from Phil Brockwell, founder of Quorum, which is a really interesting tech company. But before that, he was an operator in the UK. Peter, what has driven Nicholas Air's growth? Is it increased utilization per airframe or increased fleet size?
I think it's really more about the demand from the membership. I don't know another program that engages with its membership as much as we do here at Nicholas Air. A lot of our fleet growth is derived from those conversations we have. If you were to see us enter into the Gulfstream market, it's because the direct conversations that we have with our members have indicated they really want a Nicholas Air Gulfstream product because of all the other quality checkpoints that we have along the way. When we add Phenom 300s, when we add Latitudes, whatever airframe we have, it's because our members have indicated that that's what we want. Yes, we have the analytics and the spreadsheets to go behind it to back the purchase. but the utilization is going to be key for any business. I think when you look back at some businesses that are unfortunately not around with us anymore, I think there was this stretch to be in every market as fast as possible. And it provided to be a fatal flaw for a lot of those businesses. They were East Coast centric operators that felt that the New York and Miami market was not the best thing for them. So they alienated it, and they went to Scottsdale and Los Angeles because there were private flyers there, and they lost their spirit. They lost their the soul of their business, and eventually they folded up shop. So the utilization, the making sure these aircraft stay in the air, which they are for us, is always going to be important. But there's not going to be any rush to grow as fast as possible and just tack up a bunch of revenue on the board, because there is such a thing, as a lot of brands have learned over the years, that says that rapid growth is not necessarily healthy growth.
Brilliant. That's a great line to end on. You've got a nice comment from Colin Dunn saying culture eats strategy for breakfast. Thanks so much to Peter Van Harten, Vice President of Sales and Marketing, Nicholas Eyre, Mark Malloy, President of Partners in Aviation, Glenn Gonzalez, founder and CEO of JetIt, David McCowan, President of Air Partner Inc., and Renee Banglesdorf, co-founder and CEO of Charlie Bravo Aviation. Fantastic this week, really fascinating. Thanks so much to all our speakers. Thanks so much to everyone who's put forward questions. We've got a special emergency town hall coming up on Friday looking at aircraft transactions and exports. Please join us for that. Stay safe, and thanks again to all our speakers.